So, guys, welcome back to the Kirk Miller podcast. Today, I have a man who has become a very, 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 very good friend of mine after speaking at one of our Built to Last events. It was last November now, wasn't it, G?
Hmm.
Built to Last, it was our marquee event. And our great friend, Charlie, the Ox Watts, he said to me, Kirk, I think there's somebody that you'll get on with and would be great to speak at a Built to Last event. Because Charlie, like ourselves, very obsessed with high performance, leadership, all this stuff. And when Charlie says to me, I think this is someone you need to connect with and who would be gold for your community, then I trust that man with my life. So um, the man I have on the podcast today is none other than Gerard Wood. The reason I wanted to bring Gerard on, and the reason I believe every single person listening to this should listen to the end, is I think the word leadership is chucked around very cheaply these days in sport, in business, in personal development. Um, but Gerard for me is someone just who epitomizes what every great leader should have in terms of their traits, the way they conduct themselves. And this isn't just me saying that. This is a man who has been given an award, the top of the top of the top, and I'm sure he'll elaborate on a lot, a little bit a lot better than me, by none other than the Queen. Top military leader, who shared absolute gold at our Built to Last event, and I've been sort of positively pestering you now for a little while, going, gee, when I'm in London, I've got to make it work. If you give up some of your time just to add some gold, because I think a lot of people, G, are struggling uh, when it comes to consistent leadership,
Hmm.
just struggling with mindset in general,
Hmm.
mental health,
Hmm.
emotional inconsistency
Hmm.
that's affecting relationships,
Yeah.
business performance, health. So pre-frame everyone who's listening to this, it's probably going to go off in about 55 different million directions, because we are, I mean, you kicked off the event, didn't you, and said, you're ADHD, and I think I've been living a lie pretending that I'm not. um, so we're going to go off in so many different directions, but I know the gold, the energy, and the value that G's going to share today is going to be tremendous. So first of all, G, thank you so much for giving up your time. I know you're off to Spain tomorrow, mate, so thank you so much.
No pressure.
No, don't be silly. Gee, just to kick off,
Got to come up with something good now.
no, don't be silly. Look, this is going to be a very informal conversation and chat, mate. What was your status, first of all, in the military? And then we can obviously unpack your story for those listening.
Yes. So I joined Her Majesty's, at that time, Her Majesty's Royal Marines at 21 years old.
And what are you now? What age are you now?
I'm just into 40,
Yeah.
believe it or not. And I joined the Marine. A lot of people said, "Oh, why did you join the Marines?" And initially, I always took that question as in, why the Marines? Why not
Mm,
the other, like, amazing regiments and corps, or areas of the military that exist?
mm,
And I always say, well, I thought that the Marines was there's something um, stood out about it, where it just seemed tough. But the reality was, I just wanted a job. I'd been abroad, I'd been traveling, I got back to the UK, and I just needed I needed some work. And I wanted to do something that I enjoyed, and that I felt was purposeful and meaningful. And so I chose and joined the Royal Marines. And I genuinely thought it was going to be like the movie Full Metal Jacket. I thought you literally turned up at a careers office,
mm.
shaved your head, and then put you in green clothes, and then you go out like through the back door,
Yeah.
and then that's it. You just start doing press ups forever, and doing assault courses, and learning to disassemble and assemble
But did you know how
weapons.
hard? I mean, just give some context. I mean, I've had friends who've been in the Marines, and I'm also aware of the pass rate. I believe to get in the Marines is ridiculous. I mean, how much isn't it so much stupid? Like, I don't know, 5% of people who enroll, or
I-
that
I've
actually.
if I'm honest, Kurt, I've got
Yeah,
absolutely no idea what their current pass rates are.
yeah,
But what I did when I joined, they were running an advert campaign, a recruitment campaign that said 99.9% of people need not apply.
yeah.
And to me, that was just like a red flag. I was
So
like,
so was that I was gonna
get
say,
in.
like, why the Marines? Because obviously there's so many different, uh, areas of the military that you could have tapped
Yes.
into. Why the Marines, though?
There was something about it that spoke to me. And I think, obviously, I've grown up in the UK. We're the same age,
Mhm,
through numerous kind of wars and battles and things that had gone on.
mhm,
And campaigns. So you'd had like the Falkland, not just before we were born, but you were constantly seeing footage from the Falklands, from Iraq,
mm,
from Bosnia,
mm,
and these conflicts that had gone on. So I think something about the Royal Marines, and there was always this kind of mystique around them as well.
mm.
There's been a lot of TV shows on them, and I think a lot of the mystique has been whether exposed is the right word, but they've really lifted the curtain on a lot of the a lot of it, and that's fine. Like the people now they want to know. Like, we're so information hungry.
Mm,
We're starving for we think we're starving for information all the time,
mm.
and people's attention span, it's dipped below like 8 seconds now.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's partly human nature. I think we are just wired to be interested in things, and if something doesn't interest us anymore, then we
Mm.
flick on to the next
Because you've
thing.
got so much more options, I suppose, these days.
Absolutely, of
Whereas, I don't
course,
know,
yeah,
50 years ago,
yeah, absolutely.
there's probably a lot less choice. I was speaking
When
to
we
my
grew
friend
up,
about.
yeah, when we grew up, there's like 4 TV channels,
Yeah,
unless you had Sky
yeah.
TV.
You're right. No, you're right.
I did not
I
have
get it.
Sky TV.
I get it. I get it.
So that was it. But why did I choose the Marine? There was something about those people that spoke to me, and there was something around it. It was like, you can't just join; you've got to join,
Mm,
and then you've got to win this thing called the Green Beret.
mm,
And again, they even call it, like, all the way through basic training, they call it the coveted Green Beret. And to
mm,
covet something
mm,
means, it's like, again, from like your former world, it would be like lifting the FA Cup,
mm.
or the Sunday League Cup, or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
You know,
That was a joke. No
what,
more of those.
what, you said that obviously there was something that intrigued you
Yes.
about that. And it's like the fear, well, not many people can do it, but I'm going to do it. That's like what, and this maybe brings us onto your story, like your
Mhm.
backstory. Was there anything from your upbringing that you think created that desire
Mhm.
to be one of the few that makes it? Was there anything that happened, I don't know, in your childhood or growing up that maybe you failed at? Because I know there's certain things that
Oh,
happened in my
100%.
childhood. Was there
100%.
anything that happened where you got rejected? Because I think this will probably unpack across this episode of why so many people listening to this have chose a certain career,
Mhm.
why so many people have a desire to be in shape, why so many people haven't been able to follow through in certain things,
Yeah.
whatever it is. But was there anything from your upbringing that you think when you decided I'm going to do that because very few people could do it?
Uh, yeah, very simply, I think stories. So my father had been quite a prolific traveler when he was a young man, and traveled a lot of like different places
Mm,
abroad, and told me, and he was travel he left the UK like late 50s, sort of early
mm,
60s, and traveled all over the place, and he would tell me about this. And I think that, because again, I do a lot of work with people trying to, I'm
mm,
absolutely passionate about a couple of things: time
mm,
and purpose.
mm.
Those two things, like, we could
No,
talk.
we'll unpack that because I want to make sure, but throughout
Yeah.
this episode, people are aware of what you do as well.
Yes.
In
No,
terms of
absolutely. Yeah.
that goes without saying, obviously, because you're helping shift identity and belief and redirect people to purpose. This is so important, but there's obviously something from your backstory that it makes you so
Yeah.
driven to do that. There's always a reason, isn't it? Why we're trying to pursue certain careers. So you would say that there's a part of your father's influence that
Absolutely.
that influenced your decision.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was very much, that sense of adventure.
Mm,
And when you've had a sense of adventure, you've heard stories about, "Oh, I went to this place
mm,
and I lived I lived out on a boat for like 3 months out in a lake
mm.
fishing to survive."
W- w-
And I was just like, as a little one, I was just like, "Wow." And again, like you absolutely idolize your, um,
Your parents.
yeah, your parents, but especially your dad. As
Yeah.
a young man,
Yeah.
I idolize my,
Why do you think
my
that
dad.
is? Because I think there's a lot of people listening to this will relate to this, 'cause I was exactly the same.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. First of all, I was absolutely blessed to have my dad around when
Yeah.
I was a kid. And I think that whether you know it or not, you need their information.
Mhm.
They they teach you how to, well, like everything.
Mm,
When I joined the Royal Marines, it's very similar, but in a very different, condensed context.
mm,
So when you join the Marines,
mm,
they put you through something in 2 weeks. The first 2 weeks of Royal Marines training is called Foundation,
mm,
and basically they strip you back down to the bare, literally, or like to the bare skin, literally,
mm.
and they teach you this is how you brush your teeth, this is how you wash your nuts, and why.
You joking?
I'm being absolutely deadly serious. And this is how you make a bed.
Yeah.
And this is how you iron clothes. And why do we iron clothes? Like, why do you iron your clothes? And you're like, "Well, I don't know, to look smart." Yeah, absolutely, to look smart.
Mm,
Because being the best in the world is all about doing the basics well
mm,
and turning up, looking the part, obviously acting the part, being the part, and then going away and delivering to that high standard. So they do that in a really clever, intense way. But your parents or your carers do that in a very slow, very gentle way.
okay.
So you're molded, by during your formative years. Like whoever looks after you. I believe between the ages of 0 and 6 years old,
Mm.
whatever influences you've been around during that time, that is shaping you as a person, as an individual.
So what influenced you most?
Uh,
For the positive, and is there anything that weren't part of the script?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, I was actually born in Scotland, as you can tell by my accent, and
Whereabouts in Scotland?
up on the East Coast. And my my dad worked in the oil industry
Yeah.
up there, and he made the decision. He made that decision to move his family from East Coast of Scotland right down to the south coast of England.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the it was a tough decision for him. He had a business going, he had friends, like they built a life up there.
Why did he do it then?
Uh, so he took the choice to do that because there was a couple of things. He foresaw the recession that was about to hit the UK,
Mhm,
which did hit the UK, absolutely like decimated businesses in the UK.
mhm,
And so he foresaw that and he said, do you know what? I think we're going to relocate to where our family are and where we got. They built social network and infrastructure and things up there, but they said no. There was some other like personal things going on with
mhm,
the family, and as I say, he made that choice to move literally to the other end of the country.
mm,
And I think even though I can't remember any of that, they tell me stories about it, and it sounds like quite
mm,
a tumultuous
mm,
time. And as a little one, we think they're just laying there, just staring up at the inside of their cot
mm.
or their pram or just in the pushchair like
Yeah,
most
yeah,
people,
yeah.
sucking on a dummy.
Mm,
And they're not. We're not.
mm,
We're taking every single bit of information in because we need that information to survive or to
mm,
thrive.
mm,
Ideally to thrive, but bare minimum
mm,
to survive.
mm.
So, just like you promised, we've kind of darted around here
Yeah,
a
yeah,
bit.
yeah, yeah.
But that is where I think that initial identity formation comes from, and
Mhm.
that was obviously in it for me. And obviously, I was born in the snow, and spent a lot of time. I've seen like family photos
Mm.
and time out in the snow and out in the cold and
Mm.
being wrapped up and also but also up in the Cairngorms, it can get very 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 hot as well in summer. Get like it would tip over like 30 over 30 degrees up there.
Mhm.
You get big mosquitoes as well. So it's that I think climate, I think the environment that you're born into has a lot to do. Again, it must have an effect on you as a person, as an
Mm.
individual in your formative years.
Mm.
And then you're obviously going through that kind of tumultuous time with parents having to leave their home, leave their kind of social
Yeah.
circle, and relocate. Like, right, okay, now we're down in England. Like, what do we do? And again, there was some personal, private things going on with my parents, and some of the reasons, or some of the s- yeah, some of the reasons that they moved down for changed.
Okay.
And then that massive recession hit the UK in 1990, and it was like, wow,
Did you notice that as you were growing up?
oh, massively,
And
massively.
how and why?
So uh, our our little family unit was doing quite well. Dad was
Mm.
making some good money and things, and suddenly, boom, stop.
Okay.
Like we were, and we were just. They talked to us a lot about it, and we picked up a lot about
Mm.
it and as kids. They were never the parents that would go and sit out in the car and have a row. They never really rowed much, to be fair, but
Mhm.
they were very very honest and open with each other.
Mm.
And so, as I say, we grew up being super aware of like, oh, well, we were doing quite well, and now we're like absolutely flat broke.
Mm.
So my parents absolutely prioritize education as well. So they managed to send us to private schools,
Okay.
but my sibling and I, we were like the poorest kids in
Mm.
in a nice school.
Mm.
Boo fucking who? Like
Mm.
a lot of people
Yeah.
may think that, like, oh
Yeah.
well, at
Yeah.
least you
Yeah.
went
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
at least at least you had parents
Yeah. Yeah.
who
Yeah. Yeah.
cared for you.
Yeah.
But again, everyone's got their own subjective reality,
Mm.
and that I think formed a bit of a thicker skin, being able to deal with people who
Well, did you have it? Obviously, at this private school, if you were like say at the bottom of the barrel, I suppose,
yes, absolutely.
were you picked on? Like, was there any, I don't know, snidey comments, or where you got into certain situations, or
So
felt you weren't enough or anything like that?
so yes, absolutely.
Mm.
And I found that it wasn't because of you got I don't know what do kids pick on you for? Cheap shoes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
horrendous, isn't it?
Not being the cook. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I get it.
like you know those shoes that they always used to have outside Shoe Express,
Mm.
and they were in a basket, and it was like oh 9.99 or whatever for a
Mm.
pair of shoes. Like kids are brutal,
Mm.
but kids also they see things how they say it. So, but what I did at my school is there were great teachers there,
Mm.
and they weren't teachers, they were mentors, and they really mentor. And I ended up going up a year.
How
They I don't know, because I was
are you
like
the
a little kid.
smartest? You the smartest?
There was in the most humble way, I clearly was too smart for the for the year that I was in.
Why do you think that was? Do you think that was learnt, acquired, natural? So I think this is obviously going to play into, in some degree, G, the position you got to, in within the military. Surely, I mean, because
Yeah, possibly.
there's some things that are unborn, some things are taught, which I know we're going to speak
Yeah,
about too. But like, why do you think you did excel at school, for example? What was the difference?
I think, and I'm talking like young here, like
Yeah, yeah,
6 years
yeah,
old,
yeah, 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 yeah.
5, 6 years old. I think that I just enjoyed it.
Okay,
I think I preferred being at school than I did at home.
why?
I don't know.
Was it
Can't
connect? Was it
can't
connection? Was it
remember,
was it connection? And
but
yeah,
I just really enjoyed it,
okay, yeah, yeah.
and I didn't particularly enjoy. Um, I just the environment that they created
Mm.
was brilliant.
Mm.
And as I say, I didn't have teachers; I had mentors, and we did long
Yeah, but no, no,
days.
no, not many. I think there's something in that. I mean, I certainly look. Of course, I'd like to think I did pretty well at school.
Yeah, yeah,
I wasn't the kid that was a problem and all that stuff. My parents were quite disciplined and strict with me, but I don't know many children who would look at teachers as mentors, certainly at that age.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so I think it's a great way to look at teachers as mentors. But
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
a mentor
Mm,
listens.
mm,
A mentor spends 80% of the time on receive
mm,
and 20% of the time on send.
mm,
And they are on send when you're asking them questions. The rest of the time, they listen to you.
mm,
And that is what, again, I've learned. I've had great, amazing mentors through
mm,
my life.
mm,
And that is one of the things I absolutely apply now. And I tell other people about it. I was running a session yesterday,
mm.
and there was another business consultant on there who consults and teaches. He was like, "Oh, I need to teach. How do I teach leaders how to lead?"
It's just an open-ended question, isn't it? Right?
It is a massive open-ended question. And he's like, I'm in there as a consultant
Yeah.
and I feel pressure because I'm in there to teach these leaders how to lead, and they're sometimes leading hundreds of thousands of people in their organization.
Mm,
I said, I've got one word for you: mentor.
mm,
Be their mentor. They
mm,
don't need you to teach them. They don't need you to recite leadership books or recite quotes or things from great leaders. Don't fill the silence.
mm,
Just be there as their mentor
mm,
and listen to them. Let them talk to you. They'll ask you what information they need, and that's what you're there for. They're paying you.
mm,
And then we laughed and joked, and it was like, right, I don't have to do so much now.
mm,
I was like, you could just stay quiet now,
mm,
and listen. People will ask you what they want to know from you. Build that rapport, build that relationship, and they'll quickly know what they can glean from your experience. You're there for a reason. You wouldn't be there
mm.
otherwise. And then you give them the information that you want. And again, a mentor is mentors. They're the right people. They are they, there's that quote: "When the student is ready, the teacher will
It's so
appear."
true. It's one
Yeah.
of my best favorite quotes. I get
Oh,
it.
mate, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But that's very true for the mentor as well. When the mentee is ready, the
Mm,
mentor will appear.
mm,
And teaching is very much is very structured. And right, I need to put this information into you, and we're going to do it between, I don't know, 9 and 5. Mentors, you message, like your mentees, you message them. Like when the right thing comes up,
mm,
you message. And again, like you and I know, we're involved in some of the similar social circles or some of the same social circles. And when the right thing pops up, we message and say, "Oh, just thinking about this," and other people go, "Oh, I really needed that."
mm.
So
I couldn't agree more. For me, the greatest leaders I've come across, and like I said, been mentored by, whether it's a football manager or a
yes,
business manager of any sort, they say the right thing at the right time,
absolutely.
and they listen to you. You know. So during your school years, then, um, how did school end up? You know, what was your path? You know, when you were like sort of 13, 14, 15, did you have any idea of your career path at that point? So although you've had great mentors, you're obviously thriving from an education standpoint.
Hmm.
You're obviously very good at listening and taking on information, which I'm sure paid dividends in where you got to in the military. But like, what was your 14, 15, 16? Did you have any idea what am I going to do? Who am I going to become?
Yeah,
Who did just to backtrack on that? Who did Gerard Wood? If I'd have said to you at 14, 15, who is Gerard Wood? Because obviously, I know you're going to talk heavily about identity today.
hmm
Who would you've described yourself at that point?
yeah. So completely lost,
Mm.
and so lost, as in fallen down the cracks between.
Even though you're doing well at school,
So I was doing okay at school. By this
okay,
point, wasn't doing as well as I was when
sixth
I
or
was younger.
seventh.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And had found myself back in the year I was supposed to be in.
Was that because of distractions or just or what? Why?
I think there was there was a change in schools,
Yeah.
and having gone from one there were mentors to one where there were teachers,
Okay.
and instead of I reflect back on this, and I did speak to family about this, and it was kind of, hey, the past is the past. The past is there to learn from.
Mm.
So I dip back, and not to be angry or sad or depressed about it, but really to learn from, because of people that I talk to who are in education. But one of the things that did happen was when I moved schools,
Mm,
for whatever reason, I didn't go in with the same educational peer group. So they didn't put me back up. They didn't put me in
mm,
in the UK, the key stage level that I was previously learning at.
mm.
They put me back in with my age group. So I sat there for a
Mm.
year doing nothing apart from
Interesting. Do you think, because obviously there's part of your psyche, especially if you've gone right, I've upgraded my peer group, you know, and you've been
oh,
stretched, then
amazing.
all of a
Yeah, yeah,
sudden, and then when you character now and what you've just said there about wanting to go full throttle with the
yes,
Marines, do you
yeah.
think that somehow paid dividends? You
I think so because what I did, because I remember they just gave me sheets of paper.
mm,
It may not have been a year, maybe it seemed like a year at
yeah,
the time,
yeah,
seemed like forever. But I was a kid, and I was that kid who I lived outside the classroom window. I was like, oh, like what's going on? Because I had these stories from my father about adventure, and I was just like surely,
there's more to life than this. Yeah,
surely this
yeah,
does it really start here? where's where's like the helicopter? Like where's the
yeah.
um
Where's the adventure?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um but but I remember they used to give me sheets of paper and there were just shapes on these sheets of paper.
Mm,
And they'd just say, oh yeah, just fill like put these shapes onto
mm,
the same shape on the piece of paper. And I was just like,
mm,
is this actually real? I remember asking, said, oh, I've finished, can I have some more? And it was still very much like, oh, you think you're clever, do you?
mm,
Go and sit down
mm.
and I'll bring you some more in a minute. So I just learned to kind of entertain myself. And I was like, I'd say horrendous. I was an amazing elite level daydreamer. Developed that skill, how to entertain myself. Just sat there like, oh, right, okay. Done this sheet.
An elite level daydreamer. This is, I'm just sorry, I'm laughing, G. It's like, for anyone listening to this, it's like, let's get some context. This guy's been given a military cross from the Queen, obviously 20, 30 years later. How did you go from elite level daydreamer to that? I
It's a
mean,
great question, Karen. And we're going to cover that in the next sort of 90 minutes. But
so you left school. Then what happened then?
so I did. I left school and I decided I wanted to be a photographer.
Why?
I just
The adventure thing again, perhaps? Or
a little bit. I think I thought it was going to be that key that was going to unlock the door of adventure and fame and fortune and riches. Because as I said, you said, oh, what were you like when you were 30, 40, 50? And
mm,
like totally lost, fallen down between the cracks, between perceived expectation,
mhm,
what I thought I could achieve,
mm,
and what I was actually achieving at that time. And I didn't do too bad in GCSEs. I
yeah,
did get some. I did very little prep. My father actually got me a tutor because I was just being a bit of a pickle at school, and he made that leadership decision. He was like, right, you're in school, you're in trouble.
mm,
You've got your exams coming up,
mm.
and again, that generation were very like super obsessed. You've got to pass your exams.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Got to get.
yeah, yeah.
If you don't, I remember him saying to me
Mm,
like, "You're going to end up in a car like living in a cardboard box
mm,
if you don't pass these
mm,
exams." And I was like, now I reflect back, and I'm like, that it literally had the opposite effect
mm,
because now I'm anxious as well as failing. Um, and for like a young person, like you're absolutely not failing if
mm,
you're motivated to keep yourself fit, you're healthy, you're doing like you've got a
mm.
good social circle kind
Yeah.
of things going on. So anyway, that's darting back a little bit. So there's so much pressure, and I did all right. I managed to get some GCSEs, and obviously enough to pass because the Royal Marines, again, this all feeds in because the Marines, you have to have a GCSE or equivalent level
Oh, really?
at A to C, yeah, in
I didn't know that.
maths, English, and science
Hmm.
to be able to pass,
Okay.
or to be able to even enter.
Yeah.
And there's good reason for that because they're a self-sustaining organization, to put it into corporate terms. You can send all of them anywhere, and you don't technically. You need somebody to transport you there, the Navy or the Air Force. But once the Marines are there,
Mm,
they can look up. They can sustain themselves, and they're broken down. Well, they were broken down into 27 different sub or departments. So they used to have chefs, they used to have drivers, they had
Yeah.
communications guy. They obviously had their super high level infanteers called. Or which is everybody is that commando. Everybody is that high level infanteer as a base level. But you get the people that actually go off and do the fighting.
Mm.
Um, and you also have people that you have drill leaders, and their sole purpose is to become elite level at getting people to march. Like that is their, and they
Mm.
do instructor training in how to get you to march.
Mm.
Like, why do you need to march? I remember like being there and being like, what are we doing? Why are we in this?
Why do you think that the Marines are built to march, or soldiers in general? Why do you think that is?
Because it creates silent communication. And it was only when I'd been in a specialist military unit for sort of 4 or 5 years, and I was instructing within that, and I was teaching something called a contact drill. And it's basic military stuff, but again, that's the thing that specialist military units pride themselves on, is being able to do those basics to
Yeah.
the highest level under the most pressurized circumstances. And I remember you teaching this drill, and what you're doing is you're teaching 4 or 5 people to be able to coordinate themselves and move forward, back, left, and right.
Yeah.
Really, that's the basics of it, really simply.
Mhm.
Um, and I was looking at it, and you even call it a drill. So when soldiers are marching around, when you go to changing the guard, or when you see a parade or
Yeah.
anything like that, it's called drill. It's a massive thing in the US. Any US guys, they got drill teams. Kids go into this and they flick the little buttons around,
Yeah.
and they got a band and stuff. And they do drill teams. But what drill or marching bands and drill teaches you to do is that coordination, and it's precision coordination. But you're not touching each other. You're not
Okay.
talking to each other. So that's what it does. It teaches that silent coordination. And again, you experienced that when you were on the football pitch. When you were in a fully bonded team,
Okay.
yeah, all right. The captain probably is saying, "Oh yeah, push left," or you do say, "Oh yeah, I'm free," or you send these messages. But when you're in that super bonded team, more than often, correct me if I'm wrong, you didn't need to talk to each other.
No, I suppose there's patterns of play,
That
which is
which is drills.
correct,
That it's the same thing.
which comes from well, certainly when we played football, but maybe you can unpack this
Tr-
better than I can, G.
Translates
It
into
comes from
everything.
the certainty from the manager that he's sending the players out on the pitch,
Yep,
knowing their roles,
absolutely.
who they are, also knowing the characters of the players and all this stuff. So
Translates into so going back
because
to
as a captain, the
yeah,
player, yes, I was a big mouth captain, but I couldn't speak to every single person.
no.
I can only speak to one person at one time, or just maybe do a collective charge, but it's not.
But when you knew your drills
Yeah,
that you
you're
practiced,
prepared.
you're prepared.
Yeah.
But your team, so the defenders know, oh, Kirk's pushing over there.
Mm.
We better push over here.
Yeah.
And that was the essence of it.
Yeah. So when this
Can't
this
remember where we were going with
no
that.
no no it's just
But
no this brings us on to G, like, so you join the Marines
mhm.
first and foremost to have a job,
Yes,
to have structure in
yes.
some way. How early into that journey with the Marines did you realize this isn't just a job, and I want to progress a little bit more in this?
Oh,
And
okay. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, when did you realize, or did maybe the fascination with leadership start to take your eye? Because ultimately, yes, of course, you can do a job for a certain time and get good at stuff through repetition,
Hmm.
but you simply don't go to the level you did or lead the way you did without something clicking, or what how far into that Marine journey did you realize, like, I've got more to give here?
So I served 6.5 years with the Marines.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, 6 years with the Marines,
Hmm.
and then 10.5 with the specialist military unit that I served with.
Hmm.
And I think probably about the 4 or 5 year point in the Marines.
How old would you have been then?
So 24, 25.
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
And I just started to think, I started to hear stories about people who've been on this selection process.
yeah. Hmm.
and who'd I'd met people who'd been on it, and they never come back with positive stories
Hmm.
because it's tough. And they're never gonna tell you, oh yeah, I some of them actually did, but most of them will never admit, oh, I wasn't good enough,
Oh, really?
or I messed up on this, or I messed up on that.
Okay.
Most of them don't. They come back and go, oh yeah, it wasn't for me, or which is humans, which is ego.
Okay.
Your ego gets so misconstrued. It's one of these words. I love words, and ego is a word that that has a meaning. Your ego is all about how you view yourself. That's what your ego is,
Okay.
and your ego comes out to protect yourself. It can also come out in which we always refer to the ego as in negative ways, which is, oh, their ego's out of control. Your ego's writing checks your body can't cash.
Mm.
To quote, I was like
Hmm.
Top Gun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but really, your ego is also there to defend yourself, because if somebody's starting to poke and they've got a little knife and they've chipped her, they found that chink in the armor and
Hmm.
they've got that blade in there and they're starting to twist it a little bit. Your ego comes out and goes, "Hey, what are you doing?
Mm.
Why are you talking to me like that?"
Mm.
I don't like that, because what they've done is they're talking to you.
Mm.
They found your identity. They
Mm.
found what
Y-
is poking your self-worth. And as I say, your ego is actually how you view yourself. It's how you view yourself.
Mm.
So part of your ego comes out to defend yourself. It also, if people like those people who they say, oh, they've got a horrendous ego. That's how they genuinely think about themselves.
Elaborate on that.
So if somebody's very egotistical,
Mm-hmm.
they genuinely think they're amazing,
Mm-hmm.
and that can play out as arrogance or
Mm.
overconfidence. But that's their reality.
Mm.
I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong.
Mm.
It can be very challenging to deal with somebody like that in a one-to-one interaction or in a group setting,
Mm.
because somebody comes bowling in, and they think they're the absolute bee's knees, and that's their perception
Of themselves.
of themselves and
Yeah.
of their performance and of
But
their
they might view that as, I'm not egotistical, I'm just supremely confident in my
yeah,
ability.
absolutely. Or
Yeah.
not even that doesn't even occur to them.
Okay.
That doesn't even occur to them. They just think, oh, I'm just being me,
Yeah.
and most of the time nobody questions that.
Yeah.
So, and again, that can be challenging in a leadership setting.
Yeah.
Everybody has their own perception,
Yeah.
and I describe your perception as your toilet roll tube that you're
Yeah.
looking through.
Uh-huh.
Perspective is ripping that up,
Yeah.
and perspective is the wider, either the 10,000 foot view, or ripping that, getting out into the peripheries and the peripherals. And that was something that that drill, going back to that, is very good for, because it stops you having that completely individual view on something. You become aware there's people to the left of me and people to the right. Sometimes they're in front and sometimes they're behind. You then translate that into a social setting, and that's where it's very good. And that's why a lot of soldiers, particularly Royal Marines, are very good in most social settings,
Really?
because they can read the room.
Okay.
They're used to being around people and being kind of having to push left, push right, move forward, move back
Very aware. Yeah.
psychologically, without
Yeah.
having to be told, oh, move over there, do this, do
Yeah.
that. And they can, as I say, read the room, but also deal with these different. So for very and again, the Royal Marines genuinely is one of the most diverse organizations out there. They may not look it,
Yeah.
but they genuinely are. Like the character types that you deal with there are. I'm not going to allude. I'm not going to get into that now,
Mm, 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 mm.
because that's a whole other podcast.
Mm.
But the character types, the nationalities,
Mm.
the all the different, um, as I say, just every kind of color of the rainbow, literally physically
Mm.
and psychologically,
Mm-hmm.
you will find in that organization,
Mm.
and you're exposed to them, and you're exposed to them under pressure. So they're pressurizing all these different people all the time, and that's partly what bonds you.
And how do, because I can imagine, like you say, you've got a lot of people maybe fighting for, I might be wrong on this, who are either egotistical
Yes.
or
Yep.
the want to be the lion of the lions.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
So from your experience, say if we use the Marines as an example,
Yes.
what separates the person who's given that status as the leader of the leader from those who want to be the leader of leaders, but don't quite get there, or like what
Humility,
okay.
because it is in that organization, the more humble you are, the better you are combined. 'Cause some of the people there are absolutely outstanding. They are they're elite level athletes. They just happen to wear green clothes
But
and
they're just like
and a green.
fit as fuck,
Oh
and
my God, they're
really,
unbelievable.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
They just live in that world.
yeah.
So they live in it's like a zoo.
And how much of that comes from discipline, genetics, or acquired repetition and skill and
Oh,
practice? Like,
it's
what?
literally all of the above.
Okay.
Some of them are just unbelievable
Mm,
athletes. They just happen to live in that particular zoo and they're not out in the wild.
mm,
If they were out in the wild,
mm,
God knows where they'd end. Well, some of them end up literally all
mm,
over, like running massive organizations. When they leave, they've been given that, they've been kind of shaped.
mhm.
But they're just a very, very, very interesting, as I say, but very diverse bunch. And also, so humility
Mm.
is one thing. So when they've got that elite level, and you can tell high performers there, they're so, like, some of the guys are so good when they combine that with uber humility. That is so, the really, 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 the best of the best guys in the Royal Marines will walk into a room and they'll be quiet and humble. And that is what selects them to be, to get pushed forward for promotion or get pushed forward for, let's say push forward. Somebody will mentor them and say, hey, you should probably get promoted, or you should, it'd be a good idea for you to have a crack at selection. Super humble.
Wow. So would you say on a
I haven't always been the most humble person.
N no, no, but I consider you
I am
someone
now.
I consider you someone, yeah, okay, so with that being said, if you weren't you haven't always been the most humble person, did you have to evolve your character to move up the ladder and get into the positions?
Absolutely, of course. Your character is the character is the paint. We're all a blank canvas. Your character is the color, is the texture, is the
And
medium.
and what creates character? So whether you're a business owner
Hardship,
listening to this.
hardship. Uh, sorry to talk over you.
No, don't be silly.
So yeah, hardship, failure, enjoyment, um, experiences. These are what build character. Where does your character come from?
Mm,
Character comes from. Uh, I remember being a kid and going out and playing rugby in the snow.
mm,
That built character.
mm,
There was literally no choice.
mm,
They used to, like, when we were little, like I went, like, a school I went to when we were like 5 years old. They load us up in a minibus and be like, right, for PT this week, we're just going to go and run. And they take us out to like the countryside, and we'd park up in a car park, and then they'd be like, right, everyone out, and the teacher would just run off, and we just have to follow.
mm.
That builds character. That built my character.
What was the first thing in the Marines that like really you felt, "Fuck this, I've got to step up here." Like, what was the first situation that you just like, this is something I either didn't sign up for, or shit, I've got to show my minerals here. Was there anything that stands out?
Yeah, when I first walked into the recruitment office,
Okay. Why?
I got off a plane,
Yeah.
having been traveling abroad. I was actually working for the Foreign Office abroad.
Okay.
Got back to the UK. I got a lift from Heathrow Airport, 7:30 in the morning. Phoned up an old friend, and she gave me a lift, and she went like, "God, I haven't spoke to you for like ages. Like, what? Like, where are you going?" I went, "Take me to Army Careers Office. I'm going to join the Marines." She was like, "All right, weird." Um,
Mm,
so I did, and I turned up, rang the doorbell, and a gentleman from the Royal Navy answered the door, and he went, "Oh, you must have come to join the Marines." And I went, "Yeah, yeah, I did, sir." You call everyone sir, like when you're a
mm,
civilian, like you don't know, you got no contact.
yeah.
Like, what do I say? I was like, "Yes, sir." Like, how do you know that? And he went, "It's December. You stood there in shorts and flip flops because the country I just left, it was like 40 degrees."
Mm,
I got on a plane. I got on a flight at night, last minute, like Uber lastminute.com.
mm,
Got out of there, got back to the UK. So, and then when I went in, the guy was like, "Oh, you better go and speak to him over there." And there was a sergeant major. Now I know what a sergeant major is. I didn't. Luckily, they are addressed as sir.
mhm,
So when I did go over to the desk, like, "Oh, right,
mm,
you're right, sir." He was like, "You don't need to call me sir.
mhm,
Sit down."
Mm,
And he said, right, what do you want? I said, oh, I want to join the Marines.
mm.
And he said, all right. And what makes you think you're good enough to join my corps? And I was just like, and that is that moment you were talking about where I
And what
thought,
did you say?
I've got to step up here.
Would you remember what you said?
No,
No.
but
But you felt a feeling?
it was the right thing. He went, right, get out the back.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, like, what's going on? Are we going to get the gloves on?
Yeah.
What is going on here? Where am I going?
Yeah.
It's just the bit where they shave my head, put me in,
Yeah.
green clothes.
Was there any part of that because I've heard the training's horrendous. I mean, I've actually did a taster of it with
Oh, did you?
no, believe it or not, G, honestly. So picture the scene. I'm in the fitness industry. I've not long won a men's health competition.
Prominent member of the fitness
No,
industry.
listen to this. So I know we're diversing here, but I said this had happened. So basically, I'm sponsored by Grenade at the time.
Amazing.
Yeah, the big fat burner company at the time, even though they now do protein bars, and Al
Yeah.
Barrett has done a fantastic job growing that business. Anyway, I'd just been to a fitness expo called Body Power. It was like the UK's biggest fitness expo,
Hmm.
and ripped a foot with all the other guys standing in front of this army tank. Obviously, it was fantastic marketing. He'd have an army tank rock up, G, at every exhibition. He paid big money for it, stuck out
Yes.
like a sore thumb next
Yes.
to these stands that had just had fucking
Big
protein
gun.
pots
Yeah.
and muscly jacked up stead edge. You've got 5 ripped guys and 2 ripped girls in front of this tank. Anyway,
Yeah.
so we go to Body Power, and then afterwards, I remember going to France for a week, ate myself to death, because I had a different relationship with food and didn't really know how to stay in shape the way I do
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
It was very much binge. And then Al Barrett calls me, says, Kirk, can you come back a day or two early? We've got this marketing promotion
Hmm.
thing at the Marines in Devon.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
if I'm
Absolutely.
correct,
Yeah.
if I'm on the same.
Birthplace.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And I'm like, I've been drinking, and eating loads of shit. I'm like, what is it exactly? We're just doing a bit of filming with the Marines, nothing too heavy. Gee, I turn up at this Marine camp, and you've got 2 Marines who are built like brick shit houses and clearly just look fit.
Yeah.
Basically like looking at you. It's like these
Oh,
2
thanks.
6 foot plus, and I'm thinking, this isn't going to be too easy today. And they basically put us through the Marine test, or one of the tests they did.
Yeah.
It was a little bit stop start, of course, for filming.
Yeah.
It was fucking horrendous.
Yes.
Absolutely horrendous,
Yes.
right? And I'm ripped, I'm in shape. All right, I'd indulged a little bit in France, but it was I didn't do that type of training. The only cardio I did at that point was steady state stair climber.
Yeah.
The next minute, we're getting dragged around this Marine course, and I'm carrying someone backwards up a hill who was 15 stone, and I hated every second of it. I'm getting
Oh.
dunked underwater and all that. And
Yeah.
but I remember thinking, this was stop start.
Yeah.
But this was just one of the tests that I thought, God, and there was a certain time cap
Yeah.
you had to do it in, if my memory serves me correct, or something. But it was just, I can imagine like the temptation to quit during that test. If you, like,
Yeah.
obviously you
Interesting.
didn't, but like, I'm sure it wasn't easy even for you back then to pass. But like, what did you say to yourself? And maybe this is just we use the Marines test as an example, but the moments in your life, and I'm sure, or maybe I'm not so sure, where you've been tempted to, or there's been a moment where you had an opportunity to quit or back out.
Absolutely. Yes.
What do you say to yourself, or what did you say to yourself in those moments, even moving forward now? Because I think it's how anyone listening, whether it's in business or fitness, like, what do you say to yourself? What do you do?
So I have been coaching with a fantastic company called the Natural Edge.
Yep.
I've been a military instructor. I'd done leadership training, management training, and to the tune of, like, over my career, so 16 and a half year career,
Mm-hmm.
I've had over 18 months of specific management and leadership training and testing and refreshing and reaffirming, and then pressure testing on real live operations in that leadership management. I left, and um, Simon Jeffries from The Natural Edge literally phoned me out the blue and said, "Hey, do you want to come and coach for us? I think you're the right fit." And that was it. So I started coaching, and what I realized is I did know how to coach, but I knew how to coach or how to instruct or how to teach based off of the military style format. And as long as I had um, the uh, the almost like the instruction manual, or
Mm.
they call it the PAM, which is the aid memoir. So it's got all the information in there. Right, today we're going to do a lesson on X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
This is, and it tells you in there. This is what you need to prepare for. It's all your lesson plans. Same as your
Mm. Yeah.
PTing or your nutrition training, whatever. What he has done, he's distilled all that military training, a lot of that mindset stuff into a very, very, very simple military style format to get you to remember who you are. Because what do I do when I want to quit something is I tap into who am I? Who am I? My identity. And your identity comes at the start of everything. And what Psi and what the Natural Edge have done is they put it into this really simple formula. You've got identity, process, outcome.
Mm.
Not everybody, but 95% of people, I'm going to throw a stat out there, focus on the outcome. They go, I want that shiny object. They then try and put themselves through a process to get there. And it normally lasts between 2 weeks and a month at absolute best. And exactly what you were describing earlier about your relationship with food and relationship with training and sustained performance. uh, In the Natural Edge coaching, we call it boom bust cycles.
Mhm.
So people get all enthused
Yeah.
and they say, and they pick up, they see Kirk on the front of Men's Health, uh, and they say, oh, I want to look like that. And a lot of those, I'm not saying this is Men's Health, but a lot of those magazines have very attractive headliners on there that say, oh, look like this in 6 weeks, or look like this in, I jokingly say, oh, 3-minute abs.
Yeah, it's basically bullshit. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's bullshit.
You put
Yeah,
it so well, so
yeah,
eloquently.
yeah.
Um, and as I say, we describe this as a boom bust cycle. So people get all excited. They go out, they buy brand new gym kit, they get new bright Hoka trainers, and they turn up decked out, Lululemon, in in their new gym, and they go too hard, too soon, too early in January, totally not identifying as an athlete. And what happens is they peak after a couple of days, and then they either get physical symptoms, so they get DOMS, or they just run out of steam and they're just like, oh God, like, I've trained, like,
Well, this maybe wasn't as easy as I thought it would be.
absolutely, I've run
Mhm.
out of motivation, because they're relying on extrinsic motivation,
Okay.
extrinsic factors, the shiny object. I want to look like that. But they then dip down, they come off the back of that, and they dip down into the boot, into the bust, and then they go down further than where they started in their mental state, and they end up depressed and thinking, oh, I can't achieve it. No, I gave it a crack and I'm a failure. So now they're feeling bad for feeling bad. They're feeling bad because they've overtrained too quickly. They think they were putting their heart and soul into it, and they've crashed off the back of that because they realize that, well, this is going to take a bit more than 3 minutes or 6 weeks to look like
Mm.
you. And then they start feeling bad for feeling bad physically and mentally. And then they dip down into a depression. And then that takes them ages to get out of that. And well, guess what? Hey, guess what? When we're stressed and depressed, guess what we do?
Mm.
Eat and drink things that we think are going to cheer us up, and they don't. And then you're feeling bad for feeling bad for feeling bad, because now you're piling on the weight. You're experiencing sugar crashes, insulin spikes, and now you're probably a bit depressed as well, or they are a bit depressed as well, and now they're not helping that at all with the way that their nutrition in their bodies. So what the system literally flips it around and says, look, don't look at the shiny object, don't worry about the outcome. What you've got to focus on is your identity. You are the center of your universe. From that, I took and applied that to leadership. And my absolute mantra, my clients and those that know me, I say this all the time. We even said it earlier, you can't lead anyone else until you can lead yourself.
Mm.
So if you start to identify as a leader and you can practice that, leadership is a skill. And they say, oh, some people are naturally born leaders. Uh, I think leadership is is a skill that was developed, that may have been, if somebody appears to be a natural born leader, they were treated like a leader when they were a baby. Their parents or their carers gave them choice, gave them a voice, listened to them, and gave them that opportunity from probably before they can remember or they even know to lead. Maybe it was a younger sibling, maybe it was someone else that they lived with, whatever. But that's where that came from. So I won't get into it now, but
No, please, this is amazing. Please,
oh
this is fascinating.
there's a
I think
school
there's
of
going to be a lot of parents listening to this, and I think this is super valuable.
yeah. So there's a school of thought around skills and attributes. I want to stay on the original point, which was what stopped me giving up when things got tough.
Hmm.
And there's some some entertaining stories around that. But there is a school of thought around attributes you're born with, skills you develop.
Hmm.
So most people are not born being able to play a musical instrument. You learn that as a skill.
Hmm.
However, some people, they say, are born as a natural leader or born confident, born honest. If you have if you have carers or a parent, your parent that gave birth to you, who had those traits, of course you're going to be born honest, or you're going to be born uh, trustworthy, or born with justice, understanding justice. This is the right thing. I've got to stick by doing what I feel in my gut is the right thing, judgment. Because that it's not some sort of magic. It has come from, it's been put into you from before you can remember. So that is what I believe an attribute is. And then a skill is developed. Leadership, you can develop it as a skill.
How?
You absolutely can. Through training, and but most importantly, through developing your identity as a leader.
So, would you say single-handedly that is the most important thing if you're going to become a great leader? You have to identify
You've got to start there.
as a leader. But
Because
what?
whatever you want to achieve, it goes for anything. Whatever that shiny object or whatever that thing is, whatever your purpose is, whatever you decide, I think this, I really identify this, I really understand, I think this is my purpose. I love doing this. Therefore, this must be linked to my purpose. Your identity sits at the center of that, of all of that. And this is where people struggle. Certainly, I failed and found it so challenging when I was a young person, a young man, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Because and that's where I said I slipped down the cracks because I didn't know. I was being told, "Oh, you need to do this." Also being told, "Well, you're failing at this." And then in the middle of it, I just wanted to join the army when I was a kid. Loved it. There
Mm,
was something about the army, and it wasn't the Royal Marines. It was the army I wanted to join. I never ended up joining the army. I joined the Royal Marines.
mm.
But I identified as a soldier. And when things got tough when I was soldiering, that is obviously what carried me through because I identified as this warrior archetype.
Yeah, and that would have, if you're saying that you identify as what that warrior, that archetype, but you must at some point must have attached a great soldier as being a warrior. But where did that come? That-
Absolutely.
you must have identified soldiers as warriors, or the best soldiers as
Absolutely.
warriors, for that to
Maybe,
happen.
maybe growing up watching war
Yeah,
movies.
yeah, yeah,
When we
yeah,
were kids, like we
yeah,
had four
yeah,
channels.
yeah.
Channel 4, always playing war movies or Cowboys and Indians or Cowboys and Native Americans or war movies. That was that was part of it. Again, I had military in the family, and they were always like when we had family get-togethers. They always talk about when I was in this or that or whatever.
Mm,
So, and again, that period that we grew up in, it
mm,
was hey, most people went to church and went to Remembrance Day. You're being exposed to
mm,
military stories and military mindset, if you like, and that culture. Like military is so ingrained in the UK culture.
Mm,
The UK has like constantly got invaded. We had the first, obviously apart from the Roman army, we had the first modern organized UK military,
mm,
and it came from militias. So when there were wars, or when there were even like in the Civil War, they mobilized towns, and the
mm,
town became, if they were worked with horses, they were the cavalry, and they were foot soldiers, it was called the yeomanry, and they still exist in modern regiments now. You've got the yeomanry and the cavalry, but that is how we just, again, I'm not a historian, but
mm,
some of the history that I have read going back, we're constantly battling in this country, but in an organized way. So people will form
mm,
some sort of organized militia back in the day that then became regiments and then became an organized professional army. We had the world's first professional army in the
mm,
UK.
mm, mm, mm,
So going back to leadership, so I think leadership is a skill,
mm.
and if you want to develop that leadership skill, or you want to teach um, somebody to be able to lead, you got to help. You got to get them to work on their identity. What do you identify as a?
What would you do first? And maybe this might tie in just a little bit about your coach. Like, okay,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
say I'm someone because I think this is a huge problem globally.
Hmm.
And look, you've spoke at our events, G, and we've had multiple conversations about this. My program is called Built to Last, right?
Absolutely.
And yes, on a surface level, people might think, God, Built to Last, God, we get fantastic business owners in fantastic shape. Yes, great. But I think this is why we connected and why we're so
Because you're not a like Built to Last is not is not really a fitness company.
no, it sort of is, but it isn't. But it's more about creating lasting change. I want to
Hundred
change
percent.
how someone sees themselves forever. And we've done audits. We have multiple coaching calls a week where we're continually trying to refine how can we get the best possible results. So the results people get emotionally, physically, and mentally, they stick forever, which ties in with identity. But it's the
Yes.
biggest thing for me that is the roadblock. You know, we're just remapping our customer journey as we speak, G. And just as a really, really loose overview, someone starts a journey, they start the plan. And this ties in with what you just said about the shiny object and people like
Yes.
the idea of change, they
Yes.
buy the gear, they pay the money,
Yes.
right? They start the journey, they stick to the plan, they implement implement the training plan, they eat well with their food, they get some steps in, they sleep well, they do more of the right things, they progress, they
Hmm.
see some physical change. Problem. If someone hasn't conditioned it over and over again, and it isn't who they are, how they see themselves, how they describe themselves,
Hmm.
how they live,
Hmm.
they are inevitable to fall backwards,
Absolutely.
right? So,
Excuse
my
me.
question to you is if someone is continually progressing in short bursts, but then falls backwards, or maybe there's someone who has achieved a fantastic body at some point in their life
Hmm.
and they've really seen themselves as this confident, energized, healthy individual,
Hmm.
but has not been able to sustain it. This tells me that that identity shift didn't stick. What would be the first port of call? Because I guarantee there's so many people listening to this. If someone is listening to this and they're not where they want to be physically, mentally, emotionally, and it's frustrating them, right? It's 100% down to identity. But what would be the first thing you would address or say to them, or the questions you would ask them? What is the first thing that we need to do at that point?
Find out what they do or who they do identify as.
Mhm,
Because when people are acting or behaving in a way that doesn't seem to make sense,
mm,
because it doesn't make sense in what you're seeing. If if you say to that, if that person reflects and does some deep work, and again, this is where the natural edge is absolutely the old program was even called Tier One. Some people know, some people don't. The specialist military units or military units categorize themselves. I don't know whether this is actually an official term even, but they categorize themselves as tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And tier 1 is your special forces, your specialist military units. And that is where the natural edge is absolutely tier 1 at getting people to remember who they are. I stopped reusing this term, oh, we're going to help you rediscover who you are. It's not about that. Because over time, coaching, I realized it's not about rediscovering who you are. You're you. You don't need to rediscover you. You're there on the inside. What happens to you through, we call it identity erosion, is your identity slowly changes course and slowly starts to erode over time, and you start to become or act like someone else. And this can happen in relationships. So we see people who start dating somebody else or enter a relationship with someone else, and they change. They change the color of their hair.
Why?
They start wearing different because their identity is being altered by that other person. That influence. It's influence. So and probably because their identity, the person that they now are dating is managed to influence their identity. And it goes both ways.
Mm.
So you see people who get together and one of them goes rapidly downhill
Mm-hmm.
because they start to identify that person may be chipping away at them and going, oh, you're, as I say, just chipping away at their identity. And they start to believe that and they go, oh yeah, I am ugly, or I am not worth like myself. My self-worth is I'm losing my self-worth. And you see, on the other hand, though, it can go absolutely totally the opposite, the other way.
Mm.
And you see people and they get together and are like, wow, like what's happened to you? What's happened to them? They've met somebody who loves them, somebody who loves their true identity. And what they do is they enhance that true identity. And that's when they suddenly come out and they're looking all, when people are in love.
Mm.
When I first met you and Gabby, I was like, wow, these two.
Yeah, she'd probably listen to this. We have
It's
that
real.
moment. No, we are. We are. It's of course
Yeah.
we are. It's
Absolutely.
yeah.
But you can see that. You can see your interactions. Like she loves you for who you are, who you identify as.
Mm.
And you identify as Kirk Miller.
Yeah. There's no. I said this to you the other day. I've not been consistently. At least I've been consistent across the board with the traits she
Absolutely,
loves
yeah,
about me, and
absolutely,
also
yeah.
the things that that drive her absolutely crazy. But I am who I am, and I think.
Yes.
Would you say, just coming to that? I mean, I'm not putting myself on a pedestal here because I've got pretty many traits that drive people absolutely
Hey,
crazy.
we all do.
But I'm
Trust me.
100% what you see is what you get.
Uh-huh.
You might let me rephrase this. With the people that struggle most with identity,
Mm-hmm.
what are the most consistent patterns that you notice? And what I've noticed, Gian, I'd love your take on this. I genuinely think a lot of the people who are struggling more so with health, maybe have more volatile relationships from
Mm-hmm.
all the years I've coached, maybe are more erratic in
Mm-hmm.
business. They they are not being congruent with themselves.
Absolutely. Because they're living this boom bust cycle.
Yeah,
They're
they are. What I've noticed, especially even some of the most wealthiest people that I've come across, they
financially wealthy.
yes, financially wealthy, absolutely. They are so obsessed with keeping up a perception of how successful they are, what they have, that it's fucking exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe if someone isn't being congruent with who they are, and they're not being healthy, and they're not living with true purpose, and they're not living with integrity,
Mm-hmm.
and really at the heart living aligned to that expectation of this is what makes me happy, and this is who I'm at my best, it's going to show up in more ways than one.
Absolutely.
Have you noticed anything in particular with people who self-destruct more and things like that?
Yes. So currently I have
Mm.
my own consultancy and I work with business leaders.
Yeah, share with people what you do.
So, So again, very much like Built to Last.
Mhm.
We on the face of it, we're a business management consultancy. What I actually do is I sell people a good night's sleep. That's what I do.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes,
What do you think gets in the way of people having a good night's
control.
Okay, tell me
They
more.
so I will I will refer to what you do. So when I came to the Built to Last event,
Mhm.
I turned up and I looked around because you said, "Oh, we're going to do a bit of there's going to be a bit of we're going to do a bit of fizz." So I'm speaking kind of military speak here. So we're doing a fitness event, and I turned up and I looked around. And everyone's kind of getting changed, and I was looking at all your people, your community,
Mm.
and I was looking around and thinking, "Wow, who are all these fitness models? Like, what have I walked in completely naive. I think the Ox, Charlie, had kind of wow. He was like, ah, yeah, it'll just be a few press ups and won't be anything that kind of he'd fed me some false information, some some duff gen, as we
Yeah.
call it. And so I turned up, and as I say, there I was like, wow, like who that, like, what I'm in for a bit of a workout today, clearly. And it was a workout, and I thought they were all professional fitness athletes, obviously following
I
your
wish they
path.
all were, they're not.
Yeah,
But there's a certain mentality we try and instill.
oh,
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
that goes without
But it
saying.
was only after, like, during the event, so I got put in a team, and our team, we quickly bonded,
Yeah.
and quickly we came up with little strategies on how to get the changeovers right on the machines, and during the events that we were, or the heats that we were taking part in. And it was only during the conversations I realized, oh, you're not a professional fitness athlete. You look like one, but you're not. You're a dentist, or you're an engineer, or you work on the railways.
Mm.
And I was like, hang on a minute here. And then it was the next day when I was talking to everybody, and um, during the talks and during your addresses to your people, I realized you are not a fitness company. You are actually you change their identity. You
Mm.
take these people who, yes, they do want to achieve. They want to look amazing because it will make them. They think
Mm.
that will make them feel amazing. Looking amazing, having loads of money does not. We know people who look amazing
Mhm.
have bigger bank accounts than anyone else. They're so unhappy. So those things do not make, and that again, that's the outcome. That's the shiny object.
Yeah,
They
it's going back
do
to your process.
not make people happy.
Yeah.
Your people are happy. They look like that. They've achieved that outcome because you get them to identify as elite level athletes. And that is what I was like, wow, this is what Built to Last is about.
Mm.
It is about you turn people into athletes inside here.
Mm.
So then when they're faced with tough choices like, oh, I can't be asked to train today,
Mm.
or I'm going to eat this, or I'm just going to ignore that. I'm going to ignore Kirk's voice message, or I'm not going to do my call with my coach
Mhm.
this week.
Mhm.
They say to themselves, because you have adapted their identity, or you've drawn out, because again, they're all high performers. They're mainly high performers in the academic space,
Mm.
or in the
Or business.
or
Yeah.
business or
Yeah.
medical space or
Yeah, yeah.
whatever. Um, but the common theme throughout all of them is you speak to part of their inner, part of their identity that is elite. And again, like we had those amazing testimonials, people turning up. It was just like, oh, like, their self worth was like absolutely down in the gutter.
Mm.
You turn that around because you change. You,
No, we did.
yeah,
We did as a team. It's
yeah,
the mentality.
yeah.
No, I understand.
I
I
mean, the
appreciate.
royal you.
No, no, I get it. I get it. But it's a mentality. It's just trying to create an environment where um, those changes stick one way or the other. Whether it's something they see in me, it's something that they've heard from me, or the coaching team, other people within the community, even people who speak at the events.
Yes,
Sometimes all it takes is one conversation, one
yes,
sentence from a speaker for that penny to drop in their mind, and that can come from a different voice. Which is why, if I look at a lot of the common trends with some of the great leaders that have spoken at our events, we're all saying a similar thing, but from a different voice and a different
yeah,
experience and from a different story. And it's why what I wanted to bring you on, G, not just to the for the Built to Last event, even for today, people will be listening to this, noticing common themes about the identity. I think
Yes.
everything comes through
Yes.
identity. So, question I've got to ask you, G, is you know, you'd have been in some. I mean, you shared one at the Built to Last event, a
Little scrape.
a little scrape. I mean, again, you don't have to share this with people listening if you don't want to, but G was involved in a a situation which would have absolutely shit the life out of me. A pressure cooker situation, you know, and you're also trying to lead people. Like,
I was trying to lead myself.
yeah, you're trying to lead
That's
yourself, but like, I mean, are you happy to speak about that?
yeah. We can. I want to really get back to, have I answered your question on um, what where we were going before? Because it was around, how do you get people to
Do the
start to
do
identify
yeah,
as.
do the thing they know. How do they
Yes.
condition that? How do they do that thing or consistently do that thing they know they should be doing? Like, for
Yes.
example, that because there's one thing, like you say, getting the result or getting that identity, but then keeping it.
Yes.
There's one thing pushing through adversity once, but then keep pushing through adversity.
Yes.
What do you say? What do you do? Because I'm sure you've done this in that situation that you
Yes.
shared at the event,
Yes.
and you're now doing that with coaching. What, like, yes, of course, you're aware of an identity, but what do people do?
So what we got to do is we got to work. We got to work together and find out, what do you identify as now?
Mm,
Because whatever you identify as, that is where your behavior patterns are coming from.
mm,
Yeah, you may be, and this is where these boom busts come from, and this erratic behavior. Can't
mm,
hold down a job. Can't
mm,
hold, and most people, from my experience of coaching so far, and life as well.
mhm,
I haven't just got all my experience from the last couple of years of coaching. Like,
mm,
lived a life. I met all sorts of interesting people
mm,
all over the world, and the philosophy. A lot of the philosophy is the same, or applies to life, because that's what it is.
mm,
It's questions around life. But the the real thing is finding out, who do you identify as. And when people aren't happy, there's two courses of action that they normally take straight away. They leave their job, they leave their partner,
okay.
or they threaten to leave one or the other, and then they do. And then they're back in the kind of chaotic zone, and it's that may be familiar to them. Maybe that chaos is where they identify at, as being where it's like, oh, right, now I can go off the rails a bit and have a bit of a bit of a blowout, but the blowout lasts a bit too long sometimes.
Mm,
And then they go and like, right, I'm going to get a new job. I'm moving to this company. It's amazing. Oh, right, okay. 2 months later, how's that working out?
mm.
Oh, well, I just can't really fit
You're
in.
just moving the problem.
100%.
Mm.
Because where is the issue? The issue is with the identity. The issue, you are the center of your universe.
But I
You,
found G.
you're kicking
Okay,
a
so
can down the road.
we break down someone's identity.
Yes,
I, d- I found a lot of people struggle to do that.
of course I do. It's a process.
So how important is it to be aware of your current identity, and how important is it to be clear on creating your ideal identity? Like,
Yes. If you don't know your identity,
yeah,
you are a ship that is lost out at sea. You got no compass, you got no port, you got
mm,
no destination to sail to. That is how important identity is.
mm,
And that links into purpose. Like, what I've had people say to me, "Oh, I've got no purpose." I'm like, well, you clearly do. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been born. You wouldn't still be alive.
mm,
We like, everything here happens for a reason. Like
mm,
every single little thing. So how do we work with people? They've got to do some deep work. They got to ask some questions, and they've got to go through a challenge. They've got to go through a process, because again, identity, process, outcome. The desired outcome in
mm,
this hypothetical scenario that we're running out here, you got this person sat with us who's living this erratic,
mm,
unhappy, super wealthy, super attractive, on the outside, on the inside, totally burning away, burning out.
Mm.
Don't know who they are because they're not living a life that is in line with their identity. So they're that unstable molecule.
What's the first question? Or maybe, because I don't know, it's open ended. What's a great question someone can ask themselves?
So I will the the first question from and I'll quote this, the Natural Edge Limitless program, because that in 4 weeks it will get you to remember who you are. It's very simple. As long as you stick to it, do the work.
Hmm.
The first question from that is, where have you tried to force progress in the past? That is the week one, day one question. Where have you tried to force progress in the past? And when people genuinely sit down, put your phone out of the room, tell whoever is you think is can't live without you for 5 minutes, um, or silence your email or whatever. Just go somewhere quiet and
Mm.
have some thinking time and genuinely answer that question. It may not come straight away, but answer that question, please. That is the first question. There's a series of questions that they
Hmm.
put in front of the clients,
Hmm.
and I'm telling you, in 4 weeks, people normally have epiphany moments at the end of week one and the end of week two, and
Mm.
then they're like, I'm now starting to remember who I was and
Mm.
what, like, how to, because people go through that identity erosion process over their life, and they end up in a position, and then they wake up one day through they either have a health event,
Mm.
they either have a psychological event, or or somebody tells them, like, what are you doing?
Mm.
Why are you living this erratic life? If you
Mm.
don't stop, I'm going to leave you. I'm going to, we are your friends. We are your family. We think you need help of some sort.
Mm.
And those are the three things that normally trigger them to be like, hang on a minute. I think I do need
Yeah,
to.
the danger of losing something or someone and
Absolutely.
trauma.
Absolutely.
And I
Yeah.
think Tony Robbins talks about this, doesn't he? That should do becomes a must do. It's like,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
some people threshold.
Because your identity erodes and evolves and you become more useless. The bar moves
Yeah.
all the time. And then you go through one challenge or scare or event, and then you come out the other side of it and you're like, oh, you quickly slip back and you're like, oh, that wasn't that bad.
Mm.
And then they push and push and push. So again, that leads back onto what I'm doing now with
Yeah.
the business management consultancy at Aurelius Delta.
Yeah.
And one of the first things I ask people is, how are you sleeping at night?
Mm.
Oh, well, and whether they're sleeping well or not is binary. If you're not sleeping well, then I know there's an identity issue going on. If they are sleeping well, oh, right, okay, cool. Then I can start to dig into, what do you identify as?
Why do you think sleep's so important in relation to someone's identity?
Because if you don't sleep well, you cannot make the best decisions or the best choices. You can't think straight. To be able to um, identify as yourself and truly be you, you need a good night. Like, you need a good night's sleep.
Mm.
We all say, "Oh, did you get out the wrong side of bed this morning?" What does that mean? What are people saying? You're not being you. You're not acting like you. You're not behaving like you because you haven't had a good night's sleep.
And you think a lot of that is linked to someone struggling with their identity or their life not quite on track?
Oh, yeah, they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely hand in hand. You know this.
Yeah,
You've
because
done
there's a
so many
strong.
good posts on, like, guys, get a
No,
good
get it.
night's
Yeah,
sleep.
we've had sleep experts around
Yeah,
this and stuff because
yeah,
stress,
yes,
emotional state is
yes,
going to affect what you do, how you think, and if you've got something on your mind,
yes,
then surely you take that to bed with you.
absolutely,
And then if you're stressed or, like you say, you're not living in alignment with who you are
absolutely,
or living a life of purpose, there's a strong chance you're going to eat and drink your feelings, which can also affect sleep and all
absolutely.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. And
And,
sleep.
and, and yeah, I suppose as well, if you ask someone, and look, we've all fallen into this trap at a certain point, even if you're growing a business and it's from a place of pain or you're trying to prove yourself to the world and it's
It's your
exhausting.
motivator.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you're not in control of the motives behind trying to push so hard. it's going to become emotionally and mentally exhausting, which again is going to show up as sleep. Is that where
Well,
if we're on the right page here?
yes. So when
Yeah.
you have a purpose
Mm,
or you've created a business with a purpose and a higher purpose, I'm not just talking about what you deliver operationally. And this is like built to last is a prime example of that. My business, Aurelius Delta, absolutely, like I've set the foundations
mm.
of right. Well, what do we actually want to achieve? We want great business leaders to be able to do well. We pick and choose who we work with. That is it. Fact.
How
Because
do you pick and choose who you work with?
so I pick and choose who we work with based on what their purpose is and what I think the good that is going to come as a result of their business.
Mm,
So that's who we work with.
mm,
Because whoever I work with, I know I'm going to get you to be the best version of you and lead your business to absolute success. I know that.
mm,
And so that therefore I have to be selective who I work with
mm,
because I want that business to be for the good of mankind, to have an effect that has a good effect on people, on humanity, on the environment.
mm, mm.
So an example of who I work with um, a fantastic arborist company, and part of their reason for being, their higher purpose, we call it, is they want to produce the best arborists, arborist tree workers. Arborist is not a tree surgeon. They're beyond that. They're in tune with nature. They're there to they do the work that they do has to be in line with nature. It has to be in line. So they're great people. They're also elite level.
Mm,
They do some very high end establishments in the like
mm.
very high end
Yeah,
establishments in the UK,
yeah.
including some of the
Mm,
royal areas, we'll say. And so, as I say, I will get their business to be an absolutely elite level through working with their leadership
what makes you different?
to
To make like to say it like what gives you so much conviction to say that? What you've just said that I without will without question.
yes,
Like what?
because I used to do it for the Queen. That is why. And I pressure tested all this stuff. I was blessed, tough at the time.
Mm.
Now that is my absolute vault of gold bars that I can pull out whenever I want.
And you got to that position of doing it for the Queen because you it was a stack of evidence that you must have done over and over and over again that I am who I say I am and I deliver
Therefore,
on my word.
therefore, when I'm too tired to train, or when I don't really want to, or oh guys, we got to do one more run through, we got to do one more drill, we got to do
Mm,
one more practice. Yeah, absolutely, let's go and do it.
mm,
That that's why, because and that is where elite level comes from. Because I identified as an elite level soldier. I wanted to be a warrior, and I wanted to be the best, and I want to keep myself alive.
mm.
That's the other thing. And very often you get thrown, say thrown, you don't get thrown, you get very gently passed bits of equipment, or you get new information to digest, and you put in the time, you go through the process.
Mm.
I didn't until I met Cy Jeffries. I hadn't ordered it like that in my. He ordered it absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Identity, process, outcome. I identify as an elite level warrior. Therefore, I need the outcome of you get told, "Oh, learn this information." Okay, because learning the information, be able to demonstrate it or regurgitate it, basically, is the outcome. I will then find a process to go through because I identify as an elite level warrior and I need to do that.
But you needed to do the work to identify. And
Absolutely.
that, what you identify as an elite level, like you say, soldier, warrior. What was missing the people that didn't quite make that level, or so say average? What were the traits?
So they just didn't identify as that. They didn't identify as that special special mission unit soldier. I think if they didn't succeed through psychologically,
So
they just didn't.
how much does that tie in with like value? If we're on the same page as what values, like values and identity of you're saying someone didn't identify.
So some people don't want it enough,
Yeah.
but that is fine for them because they don't want that enough.
Yeah.
When they know their identity, they will find something they do want enough.
Yeah.
No one from that, and there'll be people from that world that can't get into their world.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because elite level soldiers may not identify as an elite level
Businessman, for example.
business person. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. They
Yeah.
love being out, getting down in the trenches, going off and and doing that particular line of work. To dress them in a suit and put them in an air conditioned office
Mm.
is like they're like, and they will fail.
Mm.
They will fail the selection process or the transition process from going from military to civilian. They won't fail it. What I mean is,
It's
it's
not important to them.
they don't identify. They
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
want
yeah.
to do
That
that.
even if they hit that identity outcome, if even if they did just through sheer willpower.
We see this in sport.
Yeah.
People, they've won their world title, they retire.
Mm.
What all they're doing is they're retiring their body. Their mind is still ticking away as like I'm the best in the world.
Mm.
They haven't retired. You haven't retired. You've retired your body because unfortunately, for whatever reason, age, injury, personal circumstances,
Yeah.
you can't sacrifice or deliver you sacrifice your bodies like you did.
Yeah, yeah.
You give so much, but
Yeah.
you do it in a physical form.
Mm.
And so you retire your body, you
Mm.
don't retire your mind. So your mind is still going, hang on a minute, we're looking over here, but your body's kind of being dragged, literally
Yeah.
hook, dragging you
Yeah.
around that way.
Mm.
And that is where the issue comes. And a lot of elite level sports people do go into business because they've got those traits, they've got that discipline, they've got that focus, they've
Mm.
got that hunger, that competitive edge. Loads of them go into
Mm.
high level finance, the hedge funds,
Mm.
all this. But the issue comes when don't really identify as a mathematician.
Mm.
Well, I don't really identify as someone who sits in an air conditioned office all day. Even like they're really simple examples. Or
No, I totally get it, G. This is like speaking to me when I was 20.
there you go. You were forced to retire.
Retired by professional football. I got released. I'm not good enough, and I attached my whole identity to being a footballer. I think
Yep.
a lot of people can relate to this listening. I retrained as a gas engineer,
Yeah.
which is quite hard to do.
Yes.
But I did it through sheer repetition and thinking,
Yes.
shit, I need to have a job.
Yes.
And everyone tells me you'll be able to make good money and pay your bills. And if you listen to this as a fantastic plumber, that's true.
So quickly there,
Yeah.
good money, pay your bills, outcome.
Yeah, but it was an absolute disaster
Yeah, because
because
you didn't identify as a gas engineer.
correct. So I think this is like a huge takeaway for anyone
Yeah.
listening to this.
It's scary.
Yeah, it is. It is. And maybe I'd love some brutal honesty on this, G. I think there are people listening to this who like the idea of being in peak shape,
Mm-hmm.
say they want to.
Mm-hmm.
How much of it, and maybe this is individual dependent, if someone is, I don't know, say step into my world, people who have been maybe sat on the fence or joining Built to Last or just getting help with their health and fitness, or they've changed, but they can't change long term. Would you say with some people that they just are probably never ever going to identify as a healthy, in shape person, or they just haven't found a big enough why, a big enough reason, or maybe they haven't lost something enough to then follow through?
I'd say neither. What's happening is you. It's not a case of you can never identify as that.
Mm.
Because to be fit, healthy, well hydrated, well nutritioned,
Mm.
that's not a massive ask.
But why do so many people struggle to do that?
Because the ways that they're doing it, they haven't met you, obviously.
No, thank you for the plug.
That's the
Thank you
first.
thank you for the plug.
That's the first reason.
Thank you. No, thank you for the plug, mate. Yeah.
But there are, and there's multiple reasons behind it.
Yeah.
First one is probably they're not sleeping well because they're stressed. They're stressed. They're not eating well. It then goes around in a negative feedback loop because you're not eating well, you're not sleeping well, you're not sleeping well,
Mm.
you're stressed, you're not eating well, and it goes round and round and round like that. That's one of the physical causes.
Yeah.
What we talked about, identity, being able to lead yourself, identity and being able to lead yourself. To be able to lead yourself, you need to know who you are. So therefore, you've got to understand your identity. Why do people? So anybody can get in shape. like anybody can at any age.
Mm,
You can do something, even if um, you've got restricted mobility, or like as long as you can move,
mm,
as long as you've got control of a muscle,
mm,
you can move it, you can train it, right?
mm,
It's whether you want to or not. And if you don't want to, or you appear that you don't want to, and we all know people like, oh, you like you're a great person, and we're gonna lose you way too soon,
mm,
like way like you've got so much to give. They're miserable, and that manifests in their body, in our bodies. We know that. If you're happy, if you're fulfilled, if you're living in line with your identity, moving towards your purpose in life, you do what your body is your body is the vehicle of the mind. If you know where you're going, where you want to go, your body will be that vehicle and take you there. Some vehicles are different to others. And some people, simply because there's all sorts of different body types and shapes, that's fine. But some people treat their bodies differently, same as their car. Some people they dump rubbish in their car. They smoke in there.
mm.
They drink in there. They sleep in there. Sometimes they don't clean it out. It's a mess. If they identify as, do you know what? I need this car because I know where I'm going. They start to treat it differently.
Mm.
Ah, this is what I transport my loved ones around in. Yeah, I'm going to get it serviced regularly. I'm going to get the whole thing
There's a
starts
different
to
meaning and value that they
mindset.
stack around
Absolutely,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. And that's what. So if anyone's struggling, listen, that. Say if you're saying advice to someone stuck, the first thing they have to do if they're struggling is stack more value behind it and change your
Yeah,
relationship and
yeah.
maybe the meaning.
When you know your identity and you know who you are,
Mm,
you'll start to realize your value.
mm,
Some people just don't realize you don't realize your value. And if you're in an occupation or in a relationship or in something that is eroding your identity, of course you don't know your value. Because it's such a travesty. I talk to people, I say, why are you even in this job? Like, you hate it.
mm,
They're like, well, it pays the bills. Oh, and
mm.
it's hard. It's so hard.
No.
I get it. I genuinely get it. I've been in that position. I've been in a job where I
Yeah, I get it.
had a mortgage,
Yeah.
had things, I had commitments, financial commitments.
Mm,
And it was like, no, you cannot leave. I remember somebody very close to me at the time was like, I said, oh, I think about leaving the unit I was at. And they were like, well, you can't. And then I was just like, oh, it felt like literally like a shutter had come down. I
mm,
was like, oh, I'm trapped in here. Guess what? I did leave.
mm.
But it became from a should to a must.
Yeah, yeah.
So, because that was what I started to identify as. I
Mm,
identified as an entrepreneur,
mm,
and I stopped identifying as an elite level soldier.
mm.
And as soon as that happened, luckily I was self aware enough to say, do you know what? I'm going to leave. I left during all the lockdowns. People saying, "Oh, you will never get a job," and I was like,
Mm,
"I don't want a job. I want to start my own business, be
mm.
an entrepreneur." And yeah, I had to take jobs and contracts and consult
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and things to keep money coming in,
Yeah.
and I did. And my purpose, I know my purpose in life. That's the other thing. I know who I am. I know my
What is
purpose.
your purpose?
Uh, my purpose is to hold up the mirror and help people or organizations just understand who are we right now.
Mm,
That's what my purpose is.
mm,
Hold up that metaphorical mirror for people. Some people like it, some people don't.
mm,
But at least it brings them into the present moment.
mm.
There is only the present. There's no past, and
I remember you spoke about this at the
there's
event.
no future.
Yeah, yeah. Remember you spoke about this at the
One
event.
did exist, doesn't exist now.
Yeah.
One is going to exist, but it doesn't exist now.
Mm.
So holding up that's my purpose. Hold up that metaphorical mirror to just be
Why
like,
is that important to you?
it's important to me because I believe that in order to do great things and to do things, do the right thing, have integrity. Integrity is such a wonderful word. Do the right thing when you think no one is watching. Doesn't matter whether someone is watching or not. When you are aware, you think no one is watching, you still do the right thing. That is integrity.
Would you say, along with humbleness, just, I know, so conscious of time.
Yeah, mate, like we
We're probably gonna get
oh,
kicked out
yeah,
in a
yeah.
second. But
5 minutes over.
along with being humble, doing the right thing when no one's watching, is there anything else that you think really, really embodies a great leader or a person of influence,
Mhm.
whether they're a parent, a businessman, a sportsman, a
Yeah.
military leader? Like, what what else? If you were to, like, we're come to a close of this, but
Yeah. This is
if
this
someone is listening, because I know there's if I was to think of like every single person in my community, every single one of them want to be a better role model
Yes.
for their children.
Yes.
Every single one of them want to influence better in some way, whether it's their team,
Amazing.
clients, the social media world, right?
Yeah.
What are the fundamental things that you recommend that person to have work on?
So this is how I help my business leaders sleep better at night. And when we talk about leadership, I've got 3 tenets of leadership: communication, discipline, and empathy. Communication is broken down into very 3 simple key elements of communication: comms. You've got to give the right information at the right time in the right manner. Right information, right time, right manner. The right information, this also links to past, present, and future. The right information came from the past. Even the information I've given you now, stop the stopwatch, is in the past. You got to give it at the right time. You can only give it in the present. And then the right manner will probably dictate the future. Let that sink in for a minute.
Mm.
So, Car as a leader, and that is that. Remember, you can't lead anyone else till you lead yourself. So, when you're communicating with yourself, you've got to give yourself the right information at the right time in the right manner. That then leads into discipline. Discipline, as I think, has got a bit of a bad rep as a word. It conjures up whatever connotations people take for the word discipline. Discipline means, to me, it's doing the right thing when you think you don't want to, when you think you're too tired, when you think you've had enough, when you think you're like, oh, I don't need to do that. That discipline says no, do that because that's the right thing to do. And in line with your identity as elite level athletes built to last, elite level business leaders that I look after, you've got to do the right thing. And the right thing can be, I'm going to shut my laptop at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and I'm going to go and decompress for the weekend because we went through something this week. And if I'm going to be absolutely on my A game on Monday morning, I need to go and decompress and shut down. I need to get some sleep over the weekend. So that's discipline, and then empathy, and that leads into empathy for you, empathy for others. How do we, like, what is empathy? Empathy is being able to understand, being able to listen, being able to understand, and then be able to make a judgment call based on what you've heard, what you understand, and what you think is best for that person, for you, and everyone around. So communication, discipline, empathy. That is, man. You can apply. You've got to. A simple way to practice those 3 is start with you. Practice with yourself.
Because if you haven't practiced on yourself, there's no way you're going to be able to do that with integrity and consistency to other
Absolutely.
people.
And you can practice on yourself all day long.
Yeah. Soji, I've got a couple of questions from the list that I had. I mean, to be honest, you've actually covered them without me even asking them,
Yeah.
which is brilliant, right?
Okay.
But I've got a couple of questions, maybe from a selfish perspective, but I think it'll also be really, really helpful for a lot of people who run their businesses
Mhm.
or want to lead in some way, maybe even for a parent where they're trying to
Absolutely.
get that
Yes.
the difference between being assertive and empathetic. Because I think sometimes, certainly having played football, if I look at when I played football, sometimes you needed to be very direct and
Yes.
but fucking tell people how it was, right?
Absolutely.
And that's understanding people, the individual, all this stuff. And I'm sure you're in many situations, even those ones you shared at Built to Last, where,
Absolutely.
like you say, saying the right thing at the right time, just like you've just said, right? About the
In
3
the
things.
right manner. Sometimes it
Correct.
has to be direct.
Exactly.
Autocratic.
But um, how does a leader balance being decisive with the need to remain empathetic towards whoever they're trying to influence or a team. So because being decisive and
Mhm.
empathetic, how do you find the balance, or is it situation dependent?
So balance comes from satisfaction in the two areas you're trying to balance.
Hmm.
So is so really and balance also to me um, kind of indicates that the two are opposites. And
Hmm.
is decisiveness opposite to empathy? I don't think so. To be decisive just means you're going to make really simple, efficient choices or give very simple, clear, efficient direction. The manner that you do that is situation dependent. But again, amazing leaders, we don't need to be screaming and shouting at people.
No.
The way to again, it's finding your leadership style and understand again, going back to your identity. What kind of leader do you identify as, or do you identify as? Then what kind of leader am I? What kind of leadership style am I behaving as?
Mm.
Because like sometimes you could have a very autocratic leader, but they really identify as a much more um, uh, um, diplomatic leader,
Mm.
and but they're like factors are making them be very no, we're doing it my way,
Mm.
and it's like hang on a minute, like what, because they're in a leadership position
Mm.
and they're uncomfortable there,
Mm.
and they don't want to be questioned because whatever reason there's something
Yeah.
they think if they get it wrong,
Mm.
or maybe the person that's asking them or challenging that
Mm.
is questioning their self-worth.
Mm.
So how do you balance decisiveness with empathy? I think it's you can be decisive, but again, it's to balance it with empathy. Really, is to uh, deliver that information in the right manner to that
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
And again, and as a leader, understanding what has our team been through, like what stage are we at, what state are we in?
Mm.
Have people been up for like 3 days straight? Are they um, uh, are they physically, mentally drained? Yes, decisiveness, it could be absolutely what you need at that stage
Mm.
because a lot of people are very tired and they're like, I don't know, do we do this, do we do that? Yeah, decisiveness, amazing. Yes, I'm making this call, go. Make a decision rather than don't make any. You got to make a decision,
Yeah.
maybe wrong, but you got to make a decision. So decisiveness and empathy, I don't think they're opposites.
No, I get it.
But again, balance comes from finding satisfaction in the two areas that you're trying to balance.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
And just the last one, mate. How do great leaders navigate the balance between being approachable and maintaining necessary distance to lead effectively?
You got to set boundaries.
Okay.
And again, I've worked for some amazing leaders, and my former organization had a very flat structure, and the leaders had to protect their time. And at the end of the day, they had information, and everybody wants to ask them. Oh, they've got great experience, and they've got great information, they've got great brains, they've got great knowledge, they've got great intellect. The leaders are selected on having all of those in reasonably equal proportion:
Mm.
intellect, knowledge, endurance, empathy,
Mm.
directness, decisiveness. And of course, as they're in the military, we're subordinates. We have a somebody that we work for.
Hmm.
We want to ask them direct questions.
Mm.
They have to set boundaries because otherwise they're answering all the questions. They don't particularly want to get involved. They don't want to micromanage.
Mm.
But the flip side of that is they can't get sucked into
Because then they
micromanaging.
wouldn't be able to lead.
They can't lead.
No,
They
because they
need to be
wouldn't have the
looking up
energy
and
to
out.
do
If they
that.
constantly got
Yeah.
people like pulling them down, be like, "Oh, look at this! Look at this! Look at this!"
And that
It's like,
relates to a lot of
no,
people running businesses right
yeah,
now. It's a
absolutely,
similar parallel.
absolutely. If you're a leader
Mm.
and your people, you're running or leading a business, and somebody or some people in your organization are constantly pulling your attention, like you got to set boundaries for them.
Mm.
And if you're slipping into people pleasing because you're maybe over empathetic, or you're anxious that or they won't perform or they may not like me, which is absolutely valid, but that's slipping into anxiety and slipping into people pleasing. So we've got to know ourselves and reflect and realize what's happening? What is the effect of this happening? And what have I got to do to stop that? And if they are slipping into that, they've got to set boundaries and have clear, a super simple one. I have an open door policy on my office. It's open until it's closed. If it's closed, please respect that. I'm either in focus time or I'm having a private conversation with somebody that needs my attention.
Which I think is a great takeaway message for a lot of people, in particular business owners who don't set boundaries and
Yes.
are so open for other people's needs at the
Yes.
expense of their own. I
Yes.
think it's one of the biggest things that we find. So many people don't set the boundaries for other people, as in they are doing everything for other people's agendas opposed to
Yes.
their own.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're there, you're all there.
Mm,
The leaders are there. You're there to serve the business.
mm,
The business become a limited company or any business really becomes its own entity.
mm,
On paper, it's a living thing. And that's why they scrutinize your accounts so much
mm,
because it's not your money.
mm,
It's the business's money. You may think, oh, I'm earning it and I'm putting it in there and I'm swelling the coffers or the bank account, whatever.
mm,
It's not yours.
mm,
It's the businesses. You are there. You're in, even as founder, leader, or CEO, whatever. You're employed by your
mm,
own, by your business has become a separate entity, and it employs you to do the right thing for that business in that business's interest.
mm.
People also say, oh, I want to run my business like a family. I've helped a business leader with this. What happens is when you run a business like a family, you start acting like a mum or a dad. Guess what everyone else starts acting like?
Children.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Children, aunts, uncles, sibling, and it just naturally happens. Oh, I want to run it like a family. Sounds great on paper. People start to create and fill roles, and they slip into those.
Mm.
And that is when what do kids need and want from their parents?
Attention.
Attention. So that is one thing I'd say is no, and that's where the boundaries come in. And we had this direct conversation. What do you see yourself as? Well, I really see myself as their kind of dad or their father figure. You got to stop that now.
Yeah, which comes
Because
down to what you said is the whole huge takeaway from this episode. I'm sure if you listen to this is, and this is again why I was so desperate to get you on it, mate, is the importance of identity and like you said, what type of leader do I want to become? What
yes,
type of person am I trying to become? Is my life on track with that? Are my habits, are my living additions aligned to that?
absolutely.
But I think even just a huge takeaway message for anyone who's not where they want to be, alongside the identity, is have boundaries.
Oh,
I think
absolutely.
so many people don't look the way they want to, feel the way they want to, have the health the way they want to, because they haven't set boundaries
Yes.
for themselves to focus on themselves. Like you've said many, many times across this episode, G, is you have to lead yourself and handle yourself first if you're going to become the greatest person of influence, whatever.
You to lead yourself or lead anyone, you've got to
Yeah.
communicate with yourself.
Mm,
You've got to be disciplined with yourself,
mm,
and you've got to be empathetic to yourself.
mm,
And you've got to communicate by setting boundaries. People don't know, people don't realize, oh, I need to set boundaries because they're not communicating with themselves.
mm.
They're not sitting down and saying, how was my day? Imagine it was
I
your,
suppose in a way, mate, as well, it's like one thing I've said, G, is look at your calendar.
yes,
Does that demonstrate that you are setting boundaries for yourself?
absolutely. What are your non negotiables?
Yeah.
And I have to do that. I slip into, I'm an entrepreneur. I run my own business.
Mm,
I am if I don't apply discipline or communicate with myself,
mm,
I'm actually going off on. I'm reinstating in our business summer leave. Something amazing institution we had at school.
mm,
You had summer holidays, and it's an amazing institution in the military as well. You have summer leave. Everyone goes. Well, not everyone, but
mm,
most people go home for
mm.
or go away for a few weeks. I didn't do that for the first 3 years of operating outside the military. So
Oh,
I've
I
just
get it.
bought summer leave back in.
Yeah.
So I'm going off on summer leave. But one of my first tasks I'm going to do once I've decompressed in a few days is reset out my weekly plan and time for exercise, time for great conversations with great people, get the ox in a sauna.
Mm,
I try and sauna every week,
mm,
sauna and cold bathing, and time for reading, time for that business development.
mm,
Those three things for me
mm,
during my working week, because I compartmentalize my week. Monday to Friday is work.
mm,
That's performance
mm,
time.
mm,
Yes, I go to bed early.
mm.
Sorry, you want me to come out and drink beer with you? Not during the week.
Mhm.
Ain't going to happen.
Mhm.
That's my performance time.
And that's a boundary set. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I set that boundary for me,
Yeah.
and therefore other people have to, I then set that
But not
boundary
only
for
that,
them.
it's and again, this is the whole thing I've hammered home ever since I've come into coaching. Gee, it's you can't give what you don't have, and if you didn't set those boundaries, you can't give
Mm-mm.
to the people you're trying to help, serve, and influence.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what one thing I've you get frustrated with sometimes with some clients. You're like, you want to grow your business, you want to be the better parent, better partner. You can't do that if you're not setting some form of boundaries with
Of
yourself.
course you can't. You're not
Right?
leading. You,
Even if it just you have to say no to certain deals, or
yeah,
maybe because at some point you're going to be exhausted. And you listen, G, me and you could go on. We said this, didn't we?
yeah,
So
absolutely,
we're done nearly 2 hours now. So much gold on that, mate. There really is, and I'd definitely love to get you on again, and we'll have to get the Ox on here next time.
absolutely.
Um, where can people find you? Learn more about what you do,
Hmm.
like you say, your business, the coaching, all this stuff. Where can people find you?
So LinkedIn, Gerard Wood MC, or at Gerard Wood MC. You'll find all my kind of content. I put a lot of stuff around justice, courage, um, uh, all those great kind of virtues
Mm,
onto my LinkedIn posts.
mm.
And yeah, watch this space. Lots to come.
Yeah, and as I said, if you are remotely interested in learning more about what G does, don't hesitate to drop your message. Right,
Yeah, thank you.
100%. Before we go, mate, I've got to share this 'cause I think it's a monumental achievement. You're such a humble person. What was it like to get the award from the military cross? I mean, that is
So, so at first, it's
that. I mean,
something.
that is
Yeah.
insane. Like,
Oh, thank you. And already my humility is like going into
mm,
overdrive. And at first, I really struggled with it. And I said to, I remember specifically going to my my line manager, military terms, called your troop sergeant major, and
mm,
saying, look, what's the deal with this? I don't. th- You sure you got the right person here?
mm,
And he'd also been awarded, and he said, right, I'm going to sit you down now, and I need you to listen to me. He said, it's way above your, he said, the people that decided you uh, were to be awarded that, way out of your league at this stage. With the greatest respect,
mm,
like they know things you don't know,
mm,
and they see things that you don't see.
mm,
But he also said, you are wearing that on behalf of the team. It's not for you. So don't go getting all big headed and well, I would anyway.
mm,
But he said, you wear that on behalf of the team. And I always held that. And again, you probably picked up on my body language whenever people ask me about it. I'm like, well, no, no,
mm,
it's because I'm very humble. I had humility, absolutely. That attribute was put on, metaphorically put on steroids when you join the Marines. Like humility is so important.
mm,
You get big headed, you get complacent, you start sticking yourself out there.
mm,
Bad things are going to happen
mm,
internally and sometimes externally, especially
mm,
in a war zone. You get overconfident, over complacent.
mm,
So, what was it like? It was uh, at first it was actually quite challenging because again I was very junior in my organisation. I was just trying to do a genuinely I was so caught up in the process. Never even thought about outcomes such as
mm,
you could get awarded for things, or
mm,
you could
mm,
get awarded for bravery
mm,
or
mm,
gallantry, or you could be. Uh, my head was just not in that space. I was
mm,
so just enjoying working with my dog, just enjoying just being part of
mm,
the team, learning from people genuinely, and I got highlighted, and I thought, oh god, this is it. Just put a lot of pressure on me as a young member of that organization, young member of that team. So that was the first thing. The second thing, I once he sat me down, and he was a mentor.
mm,
Really, 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 really good. Sat me down, explained me the kind of bit of the mechanics around it, and just said, look, just go with the flow, accept what's coming, and you will do the right thing.
mm,
And that was it. What was it actually like physically? You go to Buckingham Palace. It's all uh, very ostentatious, if you like, but there's great people there. And you look around, and then I had another massive pang of humility. I was like, "What am I doing here?"
mm,
There were people who were getting MBEs and knighthoods who dedicated their life. As I say, I joined the military and had a scrape, and someone went, "Well, I think your team has done really well, and do you know what? we're going to award you this on behalf of the
Mm,
team for what you guys achieved.
mm,
It's a bit like the captain. So you would have known this as a captain. You go up, you shake all the directors' hands,
mm,
you lift the trophy, you
mm.
thing the thing, and you're just like, oh, this is great, but it's for there was 10 other people
No, I get it. A little bit
part of
different
this.
at the Queen giving you the award.
Well,
And I think your shade was a little bit closer than mine. But no, listen, look, it just sums up exactly, why I wanted to bring you on, G. I mean, I think there's so much gold you shared
oh,
around
thank you, Kim. Yeah,
leadership
thank you.
and
I'm passionate about it.
yeah,
I
you
enjoy
are.
myself and get
I
paid.
can, I can see that, and I think whether
It's
you're a business owner listening to this, or an athlete, or anyone who's, I don't know, maybe in the military, it's like uh, success leaves clues. I think on so many different levels, and if
Mhm.
you're gonna sort of
I like that.
not take the
I'll keep that.
not if G's not going to take the pats on the back, I'll certainly give you G. It's an
Thank
absolute
you, mate.
pleasure to have you on here, mate, as a friend, and someone who's contributed to our Built to Last community. You've said some kind words, but just like you, mate, I'm just trying to do good in the world and make a difference and help people believe in themselves,
Yeah.
and just collaborate with amazing people like yourself and in our networks to, yeah, make sure that when people turn that last page on their storybook, they've left it all on the table.
Oh,
And I think a huge takeaway for anyone listening to this is, please do not ignore the importance, like G said today, of identity and purpose,
mhm.
because it makes that the journey so much smoother, doesn't it? To the life we're trying to live,
Absolutely.
the person we're trying to become, and the
Yes.
difference we're trying to make with those we love most. So, G, thank you so much again, and everyone who's listened to this, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.